Welcome back, everybody. This is Brother Mutant here. Today we're doing another video for Magus spells. This is spells level 3 and 4. Now, of course, this is not only the vanilla spells that are available in the game, but also spells that have been added thanks to the Eldritch Arcana and Call of the Wild mods. Now, these mods are not compatible normally. However, there is a catch. Not only is there an Eldritch Arcana mod, I should actually say that it's Eldritch Arcana updated. And I don't mean the most recent version. Of course, you're going to grab the most recent version. I mean, there is literally two postings for two different mods called Eldritch Arcana. One's called Eldritch Arcana. That's the old one. Then the one that says Eldritch Arcana Update or Eldritch Arcana Updated. That's the one you want. That one will actually have a link in it when you go to the screen where you put the mod in and you say turn it on, turn it off. There's a tab that opens up and it literally says use it with Call of the Wild. That's the one that is compatible, or at least so far it is. I can't attest to everything, but it seems to work, and it seems to work beautifully. That's the ones we're talking about here today. So let's actually get into it, shall we? So we have, for level 3 spells, Beast Shape 1, Channel Vigor, Cloak of Winds, Dispel Magic, Displacement, Earth Tremor, Fireball, Flame Arrow, Fly, Greater Magic Weapon, Haste, Keen Edge, Lightning Bolt, Rave Exhaustion, Sleep Storm, Slow, Stinking Cloud, and Vampire Touch. Notice that I have a coding system. I've done this in the previous videos, so again, I highly recommend you go watch those just to make sure you understand what we're doing here, since you might be watching this video first. The coding system, first, the letter that you have in parentheses is referring to the school that the spells associate with. So, of course, we have Abjuration, Conjuration, Divination, Enchantment. Notice that we don't have any of those. Evocation with a V. Again, it's separated from enchantment. I, capital I for illusion, N for necromancy, lowercase t for transmutation. And the reason for this is not that a T looks like an I here. It's when I write this stuff down, I write it on a piece of paper, and my capital I's kind of look like capital T's sometimes. I don't want to get things confused, so I do a lowercase t, and it's pretty obvious at that point. Notice that there's another code that we use here as well. If it's underlined, it means it's a saving throw associated with it, or at least there's a skill check of some kind, whether it's an intimidation check or if it's maybe a combat maneuver defense ability, or maybe it's like a strength check to like break the web spell, for example. Those aren't saves per se, but again, it's a way to lessen the effect of the spell, and I want to know that, so that's why I underline them. Also, it helps pick out ones that I might want to invest in for things like, say, spell focus, greater spell focus. Then I also have an asterisk next to some of them as well. The asterisk refers to the fact that there's no spell resistance, and that's hugely important for people that don't want to have to worry about things like a spell not landing simply because someone's spell resistance is so godly high that there's no way I'm penetrating that shit reasonably well. So again, you want to have at least some spells like Earth Tremor, for example, or Stinking Cloud, something that literally can have its effect, and there's nothing that they can do about it as far as spell resistance is concerned. And I find that useful. So again, that's why you see the list that I have. I break them up by school for one, so I can again see how many conjuration spells I have access to, and again, the ones in parentheses refer to the ones with the saving throws associated with them. And again, it helps me pick out again which spell focus I might want on a specific build. And again, as you can see, Conjuration, Evocation, Necromancy, and Transmutation usually make a strong showing for the Magus. Enchantment is the one that you never want, same with Divination. There's only like a couple Abjuration spells that even have a saving throw, so I'd pass on that. And while Illusion is usually a strong candidate for the Magus, for general spells we're talking now, they don't have access but to like 2, maybe more, as we'll see again because of this mod, but very little in the way of ones that have saving throws. So it's not your best category. That's not to say you can't make an illusionist build with a Magus. Remember, Magus have the ability to unlock with special abilities and feats spells that are available to only wizards and sorcerers. And you'll be like, well, isn't that what the Magus spell list is? No, it's not. It's a very limited list of what the wizards have access to. And it's because of that, it's why we don't see things like enchantments showing up or divination spells showing up a lot. So again, if you wanted those, that is available. So again, don't use this to discourage you, say, oh, illusions is just a bad idea. No, it means that you have to focus fire, if you will. You're thinking about what you're going to actually grab. Okay, so while I say that I'm covering level 3 and 4 spells, that's not every spell that Magus has access to. This is the generic Magus. All Magus have access to these spells. That's what we're referring to today. So let's talk about them individually. So here's Beast Shape 1. Notice that the modders, while this is in the vanilla version of the game, they have changed it. Used to be you could only turn into one of these animals, and I can't even remember which because I haven't used the unmodded version for so long. And this is not a spell that I would recommend for a Magus. It's not to say it's bad. Matter of fact, with the changes, it's actually quite good. You get to pick between being a medium wolf or a medium leopard. Well, let's talk about the differences. First, it has a decent duration. It only affects yourself. But let's talk about the bad first. You can't cast spells in this form, and you lose your weapon and your armor for the duration of that spell. So literally, it falls off your body. You're basically a naked wolf person, or naked wolf, naked leopard, whatever, running around doing your thing. Well, armor might not be that big of a deal for someone, say, like a sword saint, right? Because, again, they get their armor based on their intelligence. They're not supposed to wear armor. Yes, that's true. However, remember, they have to have their weapon in their hand at all times to get that armor. And by dropping their weapon, it's not dropped, it's just absorbed, if you will, into the body, they don't have access to it anymore. And as such, then they lose all those bonuses for being a sword saint. This is why this is bad. This is super, super bad idea. However, it's not that this is the worst idea ever. Let me explain why. So between the two forms, the wolf form is actually weirdly faster than the leopard. You run like 10 feet or 30 feet per round faster, which is useful. You only get one bite attack. That's straight lame. It's solid attack at least. And then, of course, with that bite, you automatically try to trip the target. And again, that is helpful for the team, assuming you're going on a team. I would never use these forms if I'm running solo. This would be probably a horrible idea. The only exception to this is the leopard. While it's not faster and doesn't get the trip ability, it does get 3 attacks in a combat round. And again, you're going to be like, well, so what? By level 20, I'm getting 3 attacks in a combat round. Actually, before level 20, I'm getting 3 attacks. Sure, that's true. By the time you can pick up this spell, though, let's see, it'd be level 1, level 4, level 7. This would be the earliest you could pick up this spell, is level 7. If you run out of spells, you're running on fumes. This is the last spell you have slotted up. Maybe you're an Eldritch Scion and you have picked this spell for some silly ass reason, but this is your last level 3 spell for the day. What do? Well, if I can only swing and only hit once in a combat round, maybe twice, that's kind of lame. Turning into the leopard, 3 attacks in a combat round, that might help finish the fight. So again, I can see a reason for wanting these, but for the Magus, no. This is more of the thing that, again, as a wizard, as a sorcerer, when you only get like 1, maybe 2 attacks in a combat round, best case scenario anyway, this is a decent upgrade for them in some instances. Again, the losing of the armor, the losing of the weapon, the losing of the ability to cast spells really kind of bones you here. This is why I'm not a big fan of the Beast Shape or any of the transmutation spells like this. And I do like playing a transmutation build. And interestingly, because of this mods, we've actually added a lot of transmutation spells, as you'll see. Channel Vigor is another fine example of a new transmutation spell. Personal effect, very good spell. Variety of things that you can do with it, so you have to pick and choose which of these you're casting on yourself. Now, I like this for the obvious reason that you can cast Haste on yourself, but Haste is available at level 3 spell anyway, as you will see, and that's the AoE version. So this one is only affecting you. Why would you want this spell over Haste? And I would. Why? Because of all the other stuff it does. Look at what we have here. A nice bonus to your ranged attack rolls by +4. That's great for like an Eldritch Archer. Hell, that's great for any Magus that's using cantrips or ray spells. And again, just because you're a Magus and you're supposed to be swinging a sword doesn't mean you don't want to use a Scorching Ray to somebody's face at distance to soften them up first. Just saying, there's reasons to want these upgrades. And again, a bonus to your knowledge checks, your perception checks. You certainly can see the appeal for that. Down here we have a massive bonus to your will saving throws and your bluff and intimidation checks. Of course, that's amazing for a Corn Against Smash, Dreadful Carnage, Shatter Defenses build, as we've seen me do many times. This is a solid upgrade. And Torso, the final upgrade here, you can turn this buff on your Torso. You get a bonus to your Fortitude saves, which, again, as a Magus, is not your weak suit. It's usually the reflexes. But still, I'll appreciate a +6 and a bonus to your concentration checks. And remember, you're casting spells in combat. The concentration checks are still a thing until you get to, I think, to level 20 for some of the Magus, not all of them. They get the ability to never fail a concentration check, but only at level 20. So you got 19 levels to deal with that shit. So again, having a nice solid +6, even if it's only for a few rounds per the fight, is still of value, and you can see the appeal here. Now, the duration is lame. The reason the duration is lame is because, quite frankly, any of these buffs is OP. And certainly you can see having Haste on your character for longer than 1 round per level is definitely something that would be broken. So again, it makes sense that the duration is lame. I'm not complaining about that. I'm just pointing out that you're not going to like pre-buff up with this and then run through the dungeon that's going to take you like 40 goddamn minutes or something and think that you still have this buff on you. Just be aware of that. And again, a lot of really good stuff and utility from this new additional spell. Cloak of Winds, an amazing spell, an abjuration spell this time, where it says it protects you from wind effects of lesser strength, which means I'm assuming anything that's less than level 3. And while that, I'm sure, is pen and paper flavor that they've added to the text, that's great, and we haven't discovered every spell in the game yet, thanks to these mods. So again, it is possible that there are other wind effect spells in the game. The downside is, I don't believe that the bad guys, the AI in the game, will use them. So while this, in theory, is a great thing, in practice it probably doesn't exist in the game. So just kind of ignore that part. Again, I'm happy that they added the text for flavor reasons alone, just for people that play pen and paper and they come to this game and go, oh, this is cool. Yeah, it's probably not something that's going to actually help you. That's not to say that you or your team may do some friendly fire by mistake where there's a wind effect, and having this on you that would prevent it, that could be useful. So again, I always put that out there. I haven't tested everything. There's always a possibility this is more useful than I think. The reason you want it is honestly this part right here. Range attack rolls against the subject take a -4 penalty. That's the equivalent, not really the same thing, but it's the equivalent of +4 to your armor class against ranged attacks. And that's awesome because it says ranged attacks. It doesn't say anything about ranged weapon attacks. It says ranged attacks. That could mean that like ray spells or ranged touch attacks, which are the same thing, could miss you more likely than not because of this windshield that you put up on yourself, which is pretty badass. Matter of fact, this is the spell that I would rather have had instead of something like Protection from Arrows. For those of you that don't know, Protection from Arrows, which is in the vanilla version of the game, is supposed to be an amazing spell. I think it's actually broken. At least I've never noticed it to work. It's supposed to be a weaker version of Stone Skin. It does exactly what Stone Skin does. It's like DR 10 / whatever. And it absorbs a certain amount of damage. But the limitation here compared to Stone Skin is that Stone Skin works on any physical damage. Protection from Arrows obviously only works from ranged weapons, physical damage. And again, magic, I think, penetrates it immediately. So again, once you get magic weapons or bow and arrows in the game, being used to sling those things at you, it would go right through the protection. So maybe that's why I'm saying that it doesn't really do much. The problem is I think it still doesn't do it against normal weapons, as far as arrows and such. And if that's the case, and they've never patched it out, then Protection from Arrows is a terrible idea. But now this spell, this one is amazing. And again, solid protection from your character or anyone else that you cast this on. The only real bad side to this spell, in my opinion, would be the fact that it's touch range activated on another. But since it's got a really decent duration, you'll probably pre-buff up with this spell. Dispel Magic, vanilla version spells in the original version of the game. This one actually compared to Greater Dispel Magic, honestly, this is my favorite. It's weird to say that because Greater Dispel Magic must be greater, and yes, it is. This one is the only one of the two that can remove area effect spells. So literally, it says you can cast on a creature or one area effect from a spell in the selected point, which means you click on the ground. Let's say they got a grease spell on the ground from the bad guy. You can cast Dispel Magic, click the dirt where the grease spell's at, and it will try to dispel it. Doesn't mean it'll work, but it will try. And Greater Dispel Magic will not do that. For whatever reason, Greater Dispel Magic has two settings as well. One is a target, much like this one where you pick a creature. The other, instead of being a click on the dirt, it is a big AoE, like you actually click it and it gives you a big circle to place. You place that circle and you're like, well, the grease spell fits within that circle. Certainly it'll dispel it. No, it does not, unless they fix that mess. But again, it hasn't in the past. And if that's the case still, then Greater Dispel Magic is kind of shit, in my opinion. For what it does, it's amazing. This one will remove a spell. So literally, it takes from the highest, from what I understand, to the lowest. So like, let's say you have Stone Skin, which is a decent level spell, and you have Blur, which is a lower level spell on a bad guy. You click Dispel Magic on it, it'll try to dispel Stone Skin first. If it fails, then it goes to the next one on the list, and then the one lower than that, and the one lower than that, until it finally dispels something, and then it stops. So it dispels one thing, and then it's done. Greater Dispel Magic, on the other hand, will continue to dispel everything down the list if it keeps succeeding its check. So it has to keep passing. Well, not sorry, let me rephrase that. That sounds inappropriate. Let's say, for an example, they have Stone Skin, Greater Invis, Blur, and Expeditious Retreat. So we have 4 spell buffs on a bad guy. You cast Greater Dispel Magic on him. It can fail on the Stone Skin, pass on the Greater Invisibility and strip it off. It can fail on the Blur and then pass on the Expeditious Retreat and dispel that one as well. So you see what I'm saying? It continually checks down the list. Whichever ones it passes, that spell's gone. Anyone that it fails to check, the spell stays. And that's why Greater Dispel Magic is amazing, because you can strip multiple buffs off of a bad guy. The AoE version, I believe, takes only 1 spell away from multiple targets. That's why if like someone buffs like the team with Haste, they can cast Greater Dispel Magic on the team and strip off Haste from everybody. You see what I'm saying? So again, it has its uses, is my point. But Dispel Magic to me is more useful because of the ability to dispel those area of effects. Now, having said that, there are mods in the game, or in the forums anyway, that you can download. And I think these mods that we're talking about today have the same or similar ability, where you can dispel area of effects. You can dispel your own. That's fine, and that should be a thing anyway. So I'm of the same mind as the modders that put that in there, which I think is awesome. The other mod, though, we're talking about, the area of effect removal, is another mod you can download, and literally, if the bad guy, say, throws a grease spell, again, down on the ground, in combat, I can set up this mod where I can say nope and just dispel it without casting a spell, which is wrong to me. That's cheating. And again, you can do what you want. I'm not at your house. You can play your game any way you want, but I would not do that when I play. I don't mind dispelling my own effects for free, because we've always house ruled it where we said, you know, if you summon a web spell, you should be able to wave your hand after the fight's over and make it go the hell away, instead of just having everyone trudge through it or wait for it to wear off, or, you know, you cast Dispel Magic on it to make it go away, because that's just dumb. Because who the hell would actually really do that? So again, we house rule that, but we would never house rule, well, you're a wizard, make his grease spell go away for free just by waving your hands. No, you'd have to use Dispel Magic for that. And again, that's why I kind of dig this spell. Displacement. Decent spell. And when I should point out, by the way, this is a perfect time to mention it, when I talk about do I like this spell, for most Magus, they have a spell book. You're going to grab all of them. We're really kind of talking about, for those that have limited uses, is it worth even putting in your spell book for the day? Or specifically for the Eldritch Scions who have more of a sorcerer type feel, where they pick their spells and they're married to them for all time. It's not true. These mods actually get you the ability to spec them out, at least a little bit, not a bunch, so don't go crazy on that shit. You can spec out like 1 or 2 spells every now and again, which is useful. So when I say, for example, like Displacement is a good spell, Greater Invisibility, which is coming at level 4 spells, is better. That means that I'm saying that, yeah, Displacement's good for now. You can probably spec out of it once you get Greater Invis. Or Displacement's good, but if you find something else in level 3 that you must have as an Eldritch Scion, feel free to pass on it, because again, at level 4 spells, Greater Invis is coming around the pike, and it's, in my opinion, better than Displacement. That's what I mean when I'm referring to the is it good, is it bad, okay? But this one here is decent for what it does. It literally is for you or teammate, total concealment, 50% miss chance. It doesn't matter if you're naked in the breeze or have like armor up the ass. When they're swinging at you, first thing that they check is, what's your concealment? 50%. Okay, so they roll a 1d100. So literally a 100-sided die, so 50% chance. So 50 on down to 1, they don't hit you, period. Doesn't matter how good their swing was or how bad your armor is. 50% of the time, they're going to miss. 50% of the time, they have the potential, this is important, to hit. This is where layers of protection come in, right? So they roll a 51, let's say. They could hit you. Then they proceed with their actual roll check to see if they hit you. And then, of course, if they hit you with a high enough number, then they roll to see if they crit you. So again, layers of protection. So the better your armor, the better off you are. But this, again, adds another layer of protection to that. Amazing spell. Terrible duration, but again, for what it does, it makes sense. And again, the same principle here. Touch range activated on another person straight up sucks. And again, this is a problem for this one. Unlike the other one we talked about, where it's a minute per level, and you'd probably pre-buff up anyway. You're probably not pre-buffing up like your tank with Displacement, unless it's like, oh, we know that the big fight's in this corridor here, because you scum save, and I do that shit all the time. And be like, oh, well, big fight, okay, let's give the main tank Displacement, and then I go through all my buffs for everybody else, and then rush the room. So again, in those instances, sure. If we were talking about a blind playthrough, again, you're probably not using this on the tank preemptively. You literally are waiting until it's like, oh shit, this is going to be a nasty fight. And then you're going to have to walk over to your tank, touch him on the shoulder, cast the spell. Here you go, tank buddy. You got displacement. Go to town. And that's how you would normally do it. Sure, you could extend these with meta magic rods, with extended magic, which is, again, an ability Magus have, or could have. You could use extend meta magic feats to upgrade it, making it from a level 3 casting to a level 4 casting, but doubling the duration in the process. Makes it a lot more useful, because even at the best case scenario, you're only getting 2 minutes out of this at level 20. If you extend it, now you're getting 4 minutes. So you can see the appeal. That's still not enough to usually take out an entire dungeon, unless you're power sprinting through it, or it's a tiny ass dungeon. So again, there's ways to make it better. It's still good for what it does, but I'd still maintain that you'd probably rather have Greater Invis over this one. If I can get both, again, like a normal Magus where I have a spell book and I can scribe every spell to that spell book, then hell yeah, I'll pick up both. Would I slot both? Honestly, I would. I would use Displacement when I don't need to set up things like Sneak Attack. If I need extra armor, extra protection, like it's a really nasty fight, then instead of Displacement, that's when I use Greater Invis. And there is another difference here. Notice True Seeing reveals its true location and negates the mischance. That's a spell, True Seeing. Notice this is not invisible. Okay, so if you have someone that has like See Invisible, so what? Doesn't do shit. If you have someone that has blind senses in a way that allows you to detect invisible targets, this is not invisible. So Greater Invisibility, while better, there's ways around it. There's less ways around this one. So there is reasons to have it. Would I cast both on myself at the same time? Probably no. I don't think they stack in any realistic way there. And while it could be layers of protection where, again, if somebody has the ability to see invisible, and then my Greater Invisibility is useless, and then Displacement kicks in, that might work, but it's one of those where both spells we're talking now, have a duration of 1 round per level. So it's not going to last long, and it seems to be extremely wasteful of 2 spells that are pretty precious for you as a Magus. So I would err on the side of probably not doing that. I would do Displacement when I think that it merits the use. I would use Greater Invis when I really need the extra, like Sneak Attack potential, or the extra armor. Because remember, when you're invisible, you get extra armor from attacks, and they're at a penalty to their armor. Because you're invisible, it's easier for you to hit them, and it's harder for them to dodge out of the way. So it's 2 fuck yous all at once. It's an amazing screw you when you're invisible and attacking at a target. Now, Earth's Tremor, new spell, transmutation spell. Again, I love that they've added so many transmutation spells. The Earth's Tremor is a decent spell. Ignore the target point within any range. That's kind of weird. Notice this part here. There's 3 different variable AoE choices that you get. You can either have it centered on you, big circle. Well, big being respective. So it's not teammate friendly, but be careful with that. But it's a decent circle centered on you, which means you're immune to it, but your teammates are not. You can make it a cone. You can make it a long, what I call a beam. Think of lightning bolt, but not nearly as long, 30 feet versus 120. I think you can see the difference here. But the point is, it has a lot of real good uses. It has a decent range because of the different shapes that you can make, I suppose. The no spell resistance is a big selling point for me. Remember, if you have a subcaster build, spell resistance is overcome by your caster level, and of course anything like spell pen, greater spell pen, and feats and gear and abilities that allow you to penetrate, if you will, spell resistance. So caster level getting to 20, that's as good as it can get, right? It's not true, but it's pretty darn close. The other, and here's the real bummer, is if you did like a Eldritch Scion Draconic Bloodline and do a 10-10 split, which I have done videos on in the past, and I'm very fond of them. They're very strong, they're very tough, they do what I want them to do. You will finish, most likely, and there's a way around it, but most likely you'll finish with a caster level of 17 by level 20. That's really bad then for spell resistance. Your ability to penetrate spell resistance is really, really sucking. So how do we get around that problem? It's by getting spells that have no spell resistance. You see that? That's my key. That's why I make a specific mental point of pointing out to myself with a asterisk. This is a good spell. This helps remind me. I definitely want to pick up at least, if I can get one spell that does solid damage or an effect, like Stinking Cloud for that matter, at each level, 1 through 6, for a Magus that's going to be a subcaster, I'll do it. Hell, I'll even do it for a Magus that's a pure Magus where it's going to be 20 caster level by the end, because again, if I'm not investing in Spell Pen and Greater Spell Pen, spell resistance can get nasty. And again, knowing that you have a spell at your beck and call at all times, like Snowball, a fine example, where I don't have to worry about spell resistance. As long as it hits you, it does damage. That's nice, and that's shit you can count on, and that's why we look for spells like that. Notice that this spell does decent 10 d4 damage, best case scenario, 1 d4 per caster level. Notice that means it stops at level 10, but because of that, we can intensify this spell and get it up to 15 d4. Now, yes, intensifying it usually jumps it up a level. So level 3 becomes level 4. Why do I say usually? Well, because there's meta magic rods. There's also, beautifully, traits that have been added to the game thanks to the Eldritch Arcana updated mod that allow you to pick a spell or two, and those spells have one less impact from being meta magicked up. What do I mean by one less? Well, again, intensified increases at 1 caster level, so 3 becomes 4. Well, if you take it 1 less, it goes back to being level 3. If it's let's say maximized, 3 goes 3 higher to be maximized, so 3 becomes level 6. But again, if you have that trait for that specific spell, instead of going 3 to 6, it goes 3 to 5. It goes back 1. You see that? So again, that's why that's useful. And again, I wouldn't necessarily recommend that for Earth Tremor. It's a solid spell all on its own. You don't really need to get crazy with that shit. It's a good spell. They have a knockdown effect if they're medium size or smaller, which is useful. Notice that there's a saving throw, reflex for half damage, and they're not prone. That's a bummer. And again, reflex saves really do screw you when you're fighting those ninja bastards, because remember, if they make their reflex save, those bastards that have, I want to say it's evasion, take no damage. If they have improved evasion, even if they fail their check, they take half damage. That's real bad. So again, reflex spells kind of suck in that regard. But that just means you need to know who you're casting it against. If you know it's a reflexive ninja son of a bitch, you're probably not using Earth Tremor, unless you have no choice, of course. But again, downside definitely for the spell. Fireball. Vanilla version of the spell, amazing spell, and we all know about this. It's got a nice range to it, big AoE effect. It's not teammate friendly, so be careful with that shit. It's a save or half damage spell type deal. So that sucks, and again, reflex save. But fire damage at 10d6, best case scenario 15 if you intensify it. Again, a solid spell. You're probably going to pick it or its cousin, Lightning Bolt. Fly. I can't remember if this is from the mods or if this is in the vanilla version of the game, so I do apologize for that. I use mods so often I get kind of confused. But I think this one is in the vanilla version of the game. If I'm mistaken on that, I apologize. However, this spell is decent. Notice it is different. It has gone through a couple of iterations. It used to be Fly would allow you to pick your wings, and you would move at 30 feet per round extra. Now it's 10. So I don't know who did the change or when the change happened, but it's 10 now. And it's still better because it's increased ground speed. This helps you move your character from point A to point B to swing your sword, shoot your arrows, whatever. The immunity to difficult terrain and ground-based effects, that's the selling point here. That makes you extremely valuable when it comes to like your team, or you even for that matter, casting spells like Web, Grease, to a lesser extent things like Tar Pool and Obsidian Flow, and of course this mod has added even other spells like Ice Slick, etc. and so forth. Those are ground-based effects. And while some things you're going to be immune to, some you won't be. Let me give you an example. Tar Pool is a ground-based effect. However, the initial spike of damage you would not be immune to. It does 10d6 of fire damage. So don't cast it under your feet. However, once you cast it, it persists on the ground and makes targets move slowly. That's the difficult terrain part. Well, you can zip right through that shit if you have flying on. However, if you stay within the area of effect, Tar Pool every round continues to bake and still do fire damage. It's not 10d6, it's like 2d6 or some shit. But still, it's there. And if you stay in the field at the end of your turn, you will take damage. So it's useful still in that you can zip through it and out of it to the other side. Let's say that this is the tar pool here. You can go from here outside of it, run right the fuck through it, and end your turn on the other side out of it completely. The AI in this game is stupid, and they'll just follow you through it, and they'll be like, and get all slow and burn and all that fun shit. So there's reasons that you can use this to your advantage, is my point. Again, amazing spell, and even more so when you add into this last little feature here, where it gives you +3 dodge to melee armor class. Remember, dodge armor class is the armor class that can stack on itself. So the more dodge you have, the better off you are. It's only for melee, so what? You're probably going to melee anyway, aren't you? You're a Magus, for fuck's sake, with the exception of the Eldritch Archers, probably. You're probably going to avoid melee at all opportunity for that guy. But everyone else, you're up and in it. You got a weapon. You got the ability to swing a weapon. You have armor in most cases. So again, you're doing well. Why not have even more armor? And again, you can see the appeal. Notice you can cast this on other people. Again, same problem here with the touch range. However, because of its duration, you're probably going to preemptively cast this on a teammate. Because again, by the end of the game, if you're a purist, a Magus level 20, this is a 20-minute buff. That's a long dungeon for 20 minutes. Just saying. I've had others where, the dungeons are so big that, 20 minutes isn't enough. But again, by then, I have multiple castings of this queued up, so I can cast it once. It runs out. I can cast it again, so that's not that much of an issue. And of course, I can extend it with meta magic rods, and etc. and so forth. Flame Arrow, new spell, another transmutation spell. This one I didn't like at first, but I'm starting to warm up to it, pardon the pun, for an obvious reason. First, let me explain why I didn't like it. One, the touch range activated on another. Two, this can be replicated for yourself now with the Magus, that all Magus have, the weapon enhancement. Well, I shouldn't say that. Most Magus have that now. I think there's a new subclass that doesn't now. But most Magus have the ability to enhance their weapon. They make it a +1, a +2, all the way up to a +5 by the end of the build. Actually, I think by level 17. Instead of giving the pluses to it, they can choose to make the weapon a flaming weapon, like this, or a shock weapon, or a cold weapon, or do bane damage, or etc. and so forth. So Magus weapon enhancement is an amazing ability. It doesn't stack, I don't think, with that. However, the Magus, like I said, can do it by themselves, and they do it multiple times a day, and it's not a spell, it's an actual ability. This is a spell. Spells are precious, so why would you even want it? Well, go back to this problem, if you will, here. We can cast it on someone else, like a Condio, for example, someone who's really good with a fucking bow, and that's about all he really got. Why not make his bow a flaming bow? I'm doing a current run right now, where Ekendio, I just got this spell unlocked on my Magus, and I've been using it to buff Eken for I think I'm at level 7, so yeah, because I've just got the spell. So it lasts for 7 minutes. And Eken is just killing trolls, man, like it's going out of style, just dropping them like flies because of the extra fire damage he does per arrow. This is fucking sweet. And again, really, really nice use of this. And it doesn't even have to be Eken. It can be anyone with a ranged weapon. Not raised spells, ranged weapons. So we're talking your bows, your crossbows, your sling staffs, you got throwing axes. There's a variety, darts. All that shit's applicable. And suddenly you're a flame-slinging son of a bitch. Pretty badass. Now, would I pick this up on a Eldritch Archer, for example? Again, they have access to a spell book just like most Magus do. So fuck yeah, I'd grab it. Would I use it on them? I mean, sometimes you run out of Magus weapon enhancement. I would test it. I haven't, but I would test it if I did that to see if I can enhance my weapon and then add the flame arrow on top of it. If that works, it's extra damage. It lasts for a good long while. It's worth having. But again, it's nothing super special. It's only 1d6 of extra fire damage. But hell, early levels, that fire damage stacks up, and some things aren't immune to fire. Some things like Undead hate fire. They take double damage from fire. This is going to be an amazing spell when we finally start dealing with the Undead. Greater Magic Weapon. Notice how there's 2 picks here. This is because both mods add it. And because of that, I have to be clear. This one, that's the purple-looking one, comes from, I believe, the Eldritch Arcana updated one. This one comes from Call of the Wild. This is the one you want. If you have to pick and choose between the two, which I think you do, this is the one you want to ascribe to your book. Why? Because while they do the same thing, they make a +1 weapon, or any weapon a +1, +2, all the way up to eventually a +5. They don't stack. They are additive up to the +5. So if your weapon's already +5, this is a useless buff. If the weapon's +4 or less, you can get it to a +5. That's the goal. Okay. and it lasts for both of them for a long time. It's the same exact spell with one precious exception. This one allows you to buff either the weapon in your main hand or the weapon in your offhand. It will ask, when you cast the spell, it will ask you which of the two do you want. So you have to tell it, I want to buff the offhand weapon. Why is that important? Because this does not stack with that buff we were talking about that all Magus can do to their weapon, right? So if the Magus wants to buff its weapon, it always buffs the main hand weapon. So I turn that into the Flaming Bane weapon of +5 awesomeness, whatever. And then my offhand weapon, if for some reason I'm 2 weapon wielding, is probably some lackluster +1, +2, +3 dagger, useless piece of shit, but it's an extra attack. But if I cast this spell now on myself and pick specifically the offhand weapon, now I can make it a +5 dagger of whatever. And I'd rather have it be +5 than a +4, +3, you're on down. You get the appeal. That's the difference between the two. This one, it only casts it on the main hand. And this one says, this part here, I assume this is applicable for both. I actually didn't test this, so I would caveat on this one. But this spell will not allow you to buff natural weapons like your unarmed strikes. That's what Magic Fang is for. I assume the same is applicable here. If not, then this one becomes more useful, obviously, than for an unarmed striking son of a bitch. And again, can cast it on another person, can last for long periods of time. So while you may say either version is like, well, I'll just rely on my Magus ability to buff my weapon. Sure, you will. I will too. However, not everyone on your team has a solid +5 weapon. And again, by level 7, it's only a +1 increase. But it's a +1 to their swing, +1 to their damage. Give this to Ekin. Cast it on him. Allow him to be a bow son of a bitch like he's going out of style. When you finally get to level 8, it jumps up to a +2. At level 12, it's +3. At level 16, it's a +4. And again, eventually you're going to have weapons that are already +1, +2, etc. so forth. You will get to that +5 very quickly for whoever you cast this on. Definitely worth it. And again, of the two, pick the one that looks like it's kind of like bronze. Like the sword's pointing up, the blade's pointing up versus the sword pointing down. Okay, so if you're having trouble with colors, the one with the sword pointing up is the one you want. Haste spell. Great spell. First, let's get this out of the way. It's an amazing spell. I still prefer Channel Vigor. But there is plenty of reasons to want Haste as well. Again, this if we're talking about like a limited spell picks like Eldritch Scions, I would not pick Haste over Channel Vigor. If I can get both, I'll get both, especially if I'm going to be teaming, because Haste buffs the team. Now, having said all that, what does it do? Well, Haste is a minor, and it says great. It is great because of all the things it's giving you. It's a minor buff to your armor class, your attack bonus, your reflex saves, and a really solid bonus to your ground speed. 30 feet extra around is huge. And an extra attack around, which I forgot to add in here. It's an amazing upgrade. Now, of course, that extra attack does not stack with other buffs like speed weapons and such. I think it stacks with Flurry of Blows, though, so that's cool. Point is, though, this is decent. Now, it's got the lame duration at 1 round per level, but again, for what it does, it has to be a lame duration. This would be OP as all fuck if it was like 1 minute per level. So this is decent. And the one thing that I keep forgetting about this spell is at the very end here, Haste dispels slow. Why is that important? Well, if the bad guys cast slow on you, which does happen in this game, then you have the ability now to just strip it away. And you want to strip it away because your slow is like, you're just a little less armor, you're a little less for your attack bonus, you move a little slower and your reflexes suck. So what? No, that's not the only thing that slow does, which we will see when we get to it, because slow shows up at level 3 here as well. But we'll talk about that when we get there. Keen Edge. I think this is a new spell. Again, I can't remember off the top of my brain, but I want to say this is. This one's decent. It specifically tells you, where's it at? Spell can cast only on piercing or slashing weapons, so no bludgeoning keen weapons. So be real clear on this, but increases the crit range of everything else, which is of value. And again, I do appreciate this. Now, it doesn't stack with things like the improved critical feat. As a Magus, you have the ability to turn your weapon into a keen weapon, so it won't stack with that. So again, it's a one and done, so whoever gets there first is it. But it's a solid buff, and it lasts for a fucking metric shit ton of time. It's a solid buff for level 7 on up. You're probably going to pick it. You'll probably appreciate it because you're crit fishing son of a bitch. That's what Magus do better than anybody. They really want to crit, so when they cast their touch attacks through their weapon, that the spell crits if the weapon crits, right? So that's why you want something like Keen Edge. Would it be something that I'd take on an Eldritch Scion? I'd take it and spec out of it. If this was the only spell that I spec'd out of at level 3, because you can spec out of every spell at level 1 through 6, but you only get a spec out of 6 spells total by the end of the build. I'd make this my spell that I'd pick early and keep it until I get to level 4 spells, and then it says, do you want to spec out of something? Yes, spec out a keen. Because by then I probably picked up improved critical feat or have found a keen weapon already, right? But until that time, yeah, I'd rather have the increased crit range. I mean, remember, we're shooting for this one. The 18 to 20 weapon, critting at 15 to 20. That's a big jump. That's what's a 30% chance that you're going to possibly crit, say it the right way. And that's pretty huge. Just saying. Lightning Bolt. Amazing spell. Again, this is like the evil twin of Fireball, if you will. This is a straight line spell, or what I call a beam spell. So it's AoE, it's not teammate friendly, but it's a fucking long ass line. Reflex for half damage, so that sucks. It's electric damage, obviously, over fire. That's 10d6 of damage, best case scenario. 15d6 if you intensify it. It's a little harder to line up, but with turn-based combat on, which is my staple now, it's a little easier to get 2, 3, 4 guys lined up into that fucking mess. So I'm just saying this. It's a little easier to work with these days. But people still swear by Fireball, and if I had to choose between the two, I'd be hard-pressed to pick Lightning Bolt over Fireball. Having said that, I have done so in the past, and have not regretted it, because at level 4, which we will see, there's Controlled Fireball, and I'm fine with delaying Fireball to that point, because that one is the better version, if you will. Rave Exhaust, new spell, Necromancy spell no less. Another Ray spell, so again, great for Eldritch Archers, but it's good for anybody. 2 really cool effects. One, first you have to hit the target, so be real clear on this, so it can miss. And notice that this, since it's a Ray spell, it can crit and sneak attack, but that's not applicable here. It may say, oh, you crit, so what? It doesn't do extra. There's no damage associated with it, so ignore that shit. All you want to know is, did you hit or did you miss? And also, are they immune or spell resistant? So did you penetrate their spell resistance? Yes or no? Are they immune? Yes or no? They may be immune to fatigue. They may be immune to exhausted. And if that's the case, this is a useless spell against those motherfuckers. So don't bother. But for everyone else, where you can hit them, and they can be fatigued and or exhausted. Remember, it's not. Well, it's one or the other, not and or, sorry. This is an amazing spell. Yes, there's a save. The save means instead of being exhausted, they become fatigued. If, however, they're already fatigued, we love this, they become exhausted. So what does that mean? It means if I hit you with this spell twice, doesn't matter if you save twice, you're definitely exhausted. So I fatigue you on the first one, guaranteed. Then the second one I hit you with it, even if you make your check, because you're already fatigued, you become exhausted. That's awesome. That's power. Why is that useful? Because what does fatigue do? Fatigue is a -2 to strength, -2 to dex. And you may say, well, that's just a penalty to your swing, penalty to your damage. Yeah, it's also a penalty to their armor class. It's a penalty to their reflex saves. It's a really nice fuck you to the bad guy. And that's fatigue, the weak version. The exhausted version, if they fail their check, they become exhausted, or if I hit them, double tap them, they go from fatigue to exhausted. Either way you go, exhausted is instead of -2, it's a -6 to strength and dex. Now they're having a hard time carrying all that heavy ass fucking armor. They're moving slower, their armor class is worse, their strength and dex is down, so their chance to hit is down, their damage they put out is down, their armor class is down, the reflexes are in the toilet. This amazing fuck you. And when you're exhausted and fatigued, by the way, they can't rage and they can't charge. There's a variety of things that get boned when these are in effect. That's awesome, and it's very, very useful. I can definitely see using this on my build. Sleet Storm, another amazing new spell, Conjuration spell this time. This one, like all the other cloud spells that we're going to talk about, and like Obscuring Mist, they're all going to have some weird features to them associated with like debuffing, where again, like in the ranged attacks are impossible in the area. That's fucking money. You have a bunch of archers way the fuck over here, and you're on this side of the map. Sleet Storm, fuck you bastards, you can't shoot me now. They'll have to leave the fucking area, and watch this. To leave the area, they move at half normal speed. If they pass their check. If they fail their check, they can't even fucking move. This is an amazing screw you spell to archers, or ranged attackers in general. And it says ranged attacks. I'm assuming that doesn't include spells. I'm assuming that includes ray spells, because it doesn't say ranged weapon attacks. But I don't think if there was a wizard over here, he could still probably shoot a fireball at your ass. Just be real clear on that. He may have a check because he's actively being attacked, So there might be a concentration check. I don't know. It doesn't say that it imposes a concentration check, but I would assume that that's applicable. But it's still going to be a definite fuck you to the bad guy. The downside is inside the cloud of or the sleet storm, I should say. You'll see that those typical debuffs are in there. So your concealment that they've added is for all these types of spells, all the ones with a cloud. So even Stinking Cloud, which didn't used to have this, has this concealment ability, or at least some concealment. We'll talk about that in a minute. But again, decent range, decent AoE. Notice no spell resistance. You gotta love that. It's another reason that I love Conjuration as a school, especially if I'm going subcaster, like my Draconic Bloodline, the 10-10 split. Conjuration is usually my go-to for obvious reasons, because many of those spells are no spell resistance. Very, very nice, very useful. Again, it's not teammate friendly, short duration, but honestly, for what you're using it for, you'd rather it be short, because you're going to use it for a fight and just say, fuck it. It's a stationary cloud. You're just going to slap it in a battlefield somewhere. And again, you can use this to great effect to protect your team. Again, those debuffs we're talking about, that's for everybody. You and the bad guys. Massive concealment, free of charge for everyone. And if you're planning for it, there's ways around the concealment being a problem for you or your team. So again, something that the AI of the game won't know what to do. They'll just be, do they have the protection from it? Yes, no. And if more likely than not the answer is no, then they get boned. You and your team, though, can prepare for it. You can give yourself buffs, use spells, things that can either limit the impact of that concealment, or where concealment doesn't even matter. You give them a spell that's auto hit. Concealment, don't give them no fuck. It's one of those where it's like straight up, like Bone Shaker, Bone Shatter. It's going to hit the target. Concealment doesn't matter one whit. So again, you can plan around it, is my point. Very cool battle tactics that you can use with Sleet Storm, and I love that they've added this spell. Slow spell, again, vanilla version spell, let's talk about it. And I routinely make this mistake, and I need to apologize. I routinely just say this is the reverse of haste, and it is, and it isn't. It dispels haste, so that's important. So if you see the bad guys pre-buff up with haste, slow spell their ass. They'll strip it right the fuck off. But it does more than that. If they fail their check, so there's a save or suck component to this, and they don't have haste on, obviously, they have a penalty just like what haste would give them, but in reverse. But more than that, not only are they moving slower, the penalty to their armor, their attack rolls, their reflex save, all that shit, the stuff that you'd expect from haste, but in reverse. But this part right here, they are staggered. I keep forgetting to point this out. This is more important than you think. Staggered condition, for those of you that don't know, if you are staggered, or the bad guy in this case is staggered, they get one of two things they can do in a combat round. They can either move or attack, not both. Now, obviously, they're probably going to attack. If you're up and in their face, you're already standing there. Why wouldn't they shoot at you? And you may say, well, how is that helping me? Well, here's how it's helping you. When you have that, you do not have a full action. Remember, if you have movement or attacking, but not both, that's not a full combat round for you anymore. So what does that mean? Well, if I'm, let's say this is me, that's them. I've slowed them. They're staggered. They're within range of swinging their weapon at me, so of course he's going to swing his sword. How many swings will he get? Well, he gets 3. No, he doesn't. He doesn't have a full action anymore, remember? So he gets 1 swing. He's done. You're staggered, bitch. Good luck. And remember, will save. So those tough-ass fucking trolls who are stupid as a box of rocks, their will saves are probably in the toilet. They hit you usually 3 fucking times and hurt. But if they're staggered and they're only getting 1, boom, swing, hit me. It sucks. Whatever, I'll deal. 1 hit's not as bad as 3. I think we can all agree on that. And he has a penalty to his swing and all kinds of other shit besides. You can see the appeal of staggered. And again, I need to retract my original statement. I used to say I would prefer haste over slow. I still do. I still prefer Channel Vigor over both of the others, but still, between Channel Vigor, haste, and slow, if you can get it in your spell book, you're going to grab all of them. If you're an Eldritch Scion, I'm probably still only going to pick one of those, probably Channel Vigor. If I can fit in a second, I would probably do Channel Vigor and then I would do slow. Not Channel Vigor and haste, because it's kind of redundant. If I wanted haste and slow, I could make that argument and say fuck Channel Vigor, but Channel Vigor has way too many things going for it. But again, everyone's mileage may vary on this. I like slow though, and I keep saying it like I prefer haste. Slow sucks in comparison to haste. It's not really true. That stagger condition helps a lot more than you think. The reason I like haste over slow, and I still maintain it's a better spell for this reason. The duration sucks on both of these spells. However, if I'm in a fight, I debuff the bad guys, we kick their ass. The duration is ending because they're dead. So I don't get the full effect of the spell. So what? They're dead. It did its job. Yes, that's true. But now, do the reverse. Cast haste on your team. Do that same fight. You'll kick their ass. And there's no argument over this. You'll still beat the shit out of them. They die quickly. And you still have the duration going, probably, on your teammates. How much? Well, I don't know. Because, again, I don't know how long the fight takes. But if you're quick, i.e. haste is on you, you have the ability to run into the next fucking room and start another goddamn fight. Haste may still be on your team, and therefore you still have that buff going. That's fucking awesome. That maybe means 1, 2, maybe 3 fights per casting of haste, whereas you're going to use slow once and you're done. You see that? That's why I like haste over slow. It's not that slow is bad. I love it. If I had to choose between haste and slow, I'd get haste every time. If I can pick 2 of them, I still wouldn't get haste and slow. I'd probably get channel vigor and slow. But again, everyone's different. If you can get all 3, and again, if you're a typical Magus where you can scribe them all to your spellbook, you're probably going to scribe all to your spellbook. But, having said that, which are you going to slot for the day? Again, I'd still default to channel vigor and slow. Haste is great. Let someone else on the team cast haste. Hell, Jubilos has access to it, I think. Let him fucking buff up the goddamn team. Nothing wrong with that. But channel vigor has way too much going for it. And again, I'm deviating. Let's get on with it. Stinking Cloud. Oh, I should have pointed out for slow, by the way. It doesn't stack on itself, blah, blah, blah. But it's a save or suck spell, and it's teammate friendly. Another good selling point. And transmutation, which I love. Stinking Cloud. A vanilla version of the spell, however, the modder has changed it. First, let's talk about the vanilla version part of it. No spell resistance. That's still there. That's amazing. Conjuration spell, of course. Lame duration, but so what? The cloud is stationary, if I remember correctly. Some of the clouds drift away from you. This one does not. It just stands still in one point. But it's got a really good range and nice area of effect. It is a poison effect, which means that if you're immune to poison, this won't affect them. This is good news. Why? Because you can make yourself or your team immune to poison with the spell delay poison. Obviously, you'd probably want to use the communal version so that everyone has protection. But the point is with delayed poison, you can have anybody on your team standing in this cloud and they're perfectly fine. Also, if they're immune to the nauseated condition, again, they can stand in the cloud and be perfectly fine. Because that's all this cloud does. It is a poison, but it's not a poison that does damage. It's a poison that makes you sick. That's the nausea condition. That's why this is amazing. This trivializes many fights. I mean, like, fucking ridiculous. Like, even with trolls that have a high fortitude save, eventually they're going to fucking fail that check. And the moment they fail it, so long as they stay in the cloud, they will continue to puke their guts out. So what does nausea do? They cannot attack. They can move. They can defend themselves. They can't cast spells. They can't swing a weapon. They will just stand there. And it's awesome. So you make them puke their guts out. You rush their ass with someone who's immune to it, like Miri, who as a barbarian can get immune to nausea as an actual feature. Or again, just cast delayed poison on her. Let her or the tank run into the cloud and have everyone clump up on them. They're puking their guts out and your team just takes the time to beat the shit out of them. Now that was the easy way back in the day. Now the modders have changed it where it's a cloud spell again and there's that 50% concealment in the cloud versus range attacks. So if you're in the cloud shooting out of it, there's no concealment. So that's good news. So I can hide in the cloud, if you will, from archers. If the archers are outside here, this is the cloud and my team's inside of it. The archers are trying to shoot us. We all have 50% concealment, bitch. Now, of course, we'd also want to be immune to that poison, but we can hide in the cloud. That's fucking cool tactics again, and that's something you can plan on. So it's really, really cool. It's a solid spell. I love these spells. I usually pick them on every build. Vampire Touch, the last one for level 3. It's a decent spell. This is another one of your melee touch attacks. Remember, with these mods, the Eldritch Archers have a new Magus Arcana that allows them to take melee touch attacks and shoot them through their fucking weapon. Cheating little bastards. Makes me really want to make one of these. But it's cool, and it's definitely something to think about this. You can fucking knock an arrow, cast Vampire Touch, shoot that arrow, hit someone at fucking range, do a massive amount of damage with that fucking arrow, and then I get temp HP besides. Fucking Legolas would be all over this shit if he had the ability to do it. You fucking know it. Cockswagger motherfucker that he is. You know he'd use Vampire Touch at range. So Elder Charger should too. But for everyone else, it's a melee touch attack. Can be used through your weapon, of course, as a Magus does. It can miss, but it can crit. It can sneak attack if it's being used as a melee touch attack only. Be real clear on this. But it can crit either version, whether it's a melee touch attack or through your weapon. If the weapon crits, it crits, remember? And remember, if it crits, it does double damage. You get double HP for 1 hour. Now, caveat on this one, I didn't put it down here, but it's worth mentioning. If you, let's say you're using Vampire Touch Attack as just a melee touch attack, just for the sake of argument. You walk over, you touch someone on the shoulder, you do damage. Let's say you midline it. Instead of doing 10 or 60, you do 30, right in the fucking middle. 30 points of damage to him, 30 points of temp HP to you for 1 fucking hour. Are you going to keep that 30 for the hour? No. You're going to get that stripped off you pretty quickly. But the point's still the same. It's going to last for a long time. And it's free HP. But let's say you decide to be a complete utter bonehead and recast the spell in the very next combat round. You're like, that works so well, let's do it again. Well, let's say you roll a 10 this time, all ones. You do 10 points of damage to the bastard, and you get 10 temp HP. Is that added to the 30? Nope. It removes the 30 or whatever you had left and replaces it. So don't double tap, is my advice to you. There's reasons to do it, so I'm not saying you shouldn't, but it will replace the temp HP. And if you roll badly, do it again. You roll better on the second roll again, you'll get better HP. So again, sure, there's reasons to want to double tap something, but by and large, you probably want to be one and done. Use up the temp HP and then do it again. That's the best use. Still a solid spell. And while you can intensify this, actually I take that back. I don't think you can. 10 D6 is at 2 caster level per D6, so that's at level 20. That doesn't mean you can't be better than level 20. And a lot of people are like, well, brother mutant, level 20 is the cap in the game. I'm not going to add a mod that cheats that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about things like spell specialization. You can get spell specialization for necromancy spells. You get to pick one spell and one spell only that you specialize in. Let's say it's Vampire Touch. That adds 2 caster levels to your actual caster level. So if you're level 20, for all spells you'd be doing caster level 20 stuff. But for Vampire Touch, because you specialize in it, you'd be 22. This would go to 11d6. I don't think you need to intensify that to get that to work. If you do, then again, intensified would work in that regard. But you're not ever going to get through that 15d6 like you're hoping for. That's kind of a bummer. You can get it pretty high though, because like I said, the spell specialization will get you to level 22 theoretically for one spell. There's ways to increase it beyond that. There's like Mage Tattoo, all kinds of stuff added from these mods. And like Mage Tattoo can add every necromancy spell you have could be 1 caster level higher. So you could be at 21 with spell specialization. You can go from 21 to 23. With spell perfection, you can go from 23 up to like a 25, 26. So you could get it pretty fucking high for your caster level for like one spell. So don't discount that shit. There's lots of ways to get it higher than this 10. I don't think it's worth it, but you could do it. So again, that's why I say with effort. Pretty cool spell though. Definitely something you probably have on your builds. And all Magus should want this. Even Elder Chargers now. So again, definitely a solid choice. Level 4 spells. We have B-Shape 2, Controlled Fireball, Dimension Door, Dragon's Breath, Elemental Body 1, Fire Shield, Forceful Strike, Greater Aggressive Thundercloud, Greater Invisibility, Ice Storm, Mass Enlarged Person, Mass Reduced Person, Phantasmal Killer, Rigor Mortis, River of Wind, Shield of Dawn, Shout, Solid Fog, Stone Skin, Wall of Fire. A lot of new spells here. Okay, so again, vanilla spells are in here too, same code. This is how many Conjuration spells with saves. This is how many Evocation spells with saves. 6 of them, that's a lot. Evocation always makes a strong showing. Hell, there's one illusion spell in here. That's our Phantasmal Killer now. This is your second illusion spell I think of. So Color Spray is your first. And then Phantasmal Killer would be, I think, your second and only illusion spell that you can get for all Magus. That's not to say that like there's not an Eldritch Scion out there that doesn't get like a free illusion spell thanks to their bloodline, or that we can pick wizard spells that would add to our illusion spell list, which you should definitely do. But that's for another time. No necromancy spells, oddly, at this level. Transmutation spell got plenty, and one with a new save, and that's Rigor Mortis. Very, very nice. Very appreciative that they added these new spells. But again, a lot of good stuff. Let's go through them. B-Shape 2, same problem that we had with B-Shape 1. You lose your armor, you lose your weapon, you lose your ability to cast spells. However, Large Bear, Large Dire Wolf, they are fun. The bear is a lot like the leopard, in that you get multiple attacks, and is reasonably strong, and it even is faster. The dire wolf is faster, and it's decently strong. Weirdly, it's as strong as the goddamn bear. It still only gets one bite attack, and it can trip. And I keep pointing out the one bite attack. I should have also pointed out that if you had haste already cast on your character, or someone else cast it after you turn, you could get 2 attacks. You can still haste these forms. So I should have said that. But remember, you can't cast spells once you change. So pre-buff up, or let someone else buff you up after you turn. And again, same general principle here. I wouldn't use it for the penalties that we've already talked about, but I could see some people having fun with it just for funsies. I mean, hell, turning into a large papa bear is funny as shit. Control Fireball. Again, this is the reason that sometimes I'll pass on getting Fireball, because I know this is around the corner. This one is the amazing version, and while you may say, well, it's the same damage, it's the same everything, it just doesn't damage the good guys. It's not just that right here. Because it's level 4 versus Fireball, which is level 3, it technically has a higher DC. It's only 1 higher, but it is higher. So if you're fighting for that high DC so that those spell checks, that they fail their saving throws, this is the better version. So this is the one you want. Do you want both? Of course you want both. But if you had to make a hard choice, like an Eldritch Scion would, then you want Controlled Fireball over Fireball. And again, the ability to cast it at your fucking feet and just be in the effect and not hurt you at all is fucking awesome. Who doesn't love that shit? Fireball, fireball, fireball. Get caught in a corner and just nuke their asses, and it's super funny. Same general problem, though, that we saw with Fireball, really, with the exception, again, of not being able to hurt the team. Dimension Door. Amazing spell, vanilla version spell. I routinely, when I have this in a spell book, so not an Eldritch Scion, but for anyone else, if I'm going to use this, I slot it twice, because you typically want to teleport in and teleport out for whatever you're doing. Okay, so if that's not going to be your thing, then don't slot it twice. Don't use this spell. There's reasons to use it in combat, like oh, I got mugged, or I'm over here, the archers are over there. I know I can melee the fuck out of them if I just got from here to there quickly. Dimension Door to their ass. Boop! Here I am, buddy. Slap, 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 and just kick their ass. So there's reasons to want it in combat too. However, if you want it for what I use it for exploring certain areas, the devs, the original creators of this game, went out of their way to make areas where you should be able to teleport down to it and teleport back. That's why I say teleport down, teleport back. You usually need 2 castings. Yes, you may take your team with you, but it's a very narrow radius here. You need to be really closely clumped up to each other. So again, get into everybody's butt crack in a nice tight formation, and then save. Can't stress this enough. So obviously this is not for you that do the Last Islante mode. Do a quick save, teleport into the area. Did everyone teleport in? Yes, we're fine. Was it no? Oh, you fucked up. Go back to your earlier save and get people closer, because it will allow you to teleport everybody. Teleport everyone over, and now you're in the next room or down in the dungeons or wherever the hell you teleported to. There is some other things I almost changed this explore to exploit, because quite frankly there's a lot of exploits that you can do with this too. That's for you to decide. I'll still do it because I find it funny, and I think that it's a valid exploit. It's not cheating. It's the whole point of fucking magic is you're a cheater. So I find it cool. But again, it's a solid spell. You will find many, many uses for it besides the obvious. Definitely fun. Definitely something I get on every build if I can squeeze them in there. And notice that it's a Conjuration spell. Sometimes it says that you can upgrade Conjurations, like if you had Spell Focus Conjuration and then Spell Specialization, where it allows you to pick a Conjuration spell. This shows up on that list. It does nothing to it. Do not pick that. That's a weird thing that they put in there. I don't know why. It's a trap. You don't teleport farther. You don't get more teleports. It's just one and done. So I don't know why Spell Specialization, this shows up. It shouldn't. Dragon's Breath. Now we're talking. My baby. 12d6 of damage should be the only selling point you need here. But let's keep telling you other stuff. Like, how about the fact that I get 4 different damage types I can choose from? I can be electric, I can be fire, or cold, or acid. Just depends on what type of dragon I pick. And I can either be a cone breath or a line breath, kind of like lightning bolt, just not as far. The downside of this is, for example, it's determined by the dragon, the one that you're trying to mimic, right? So good news is for fire dragons and I want to say acid dragons, they all have cones or lines. So you can get to pick or choose. So if I want a fire cone or a fire line, I can do so. Same with acid. For cold and electric, it doesn't work that way. The only electric dragon you can choose is one that does a line, like a blue dragon. The only cold dragons you can do are the ones that have cones. So there's no lines for the cold dragon type. So that kind of sucks. There's ways around it. I'm not going to list those here. But by and large, that is the only thing about this that I hate. That and the fact that this tooltip here is wrong. There is spell resistance for the spell. So this tooltip is incorrect. They never fixed that. And honestly, I don't even know if it's supposed to be no spell resistance. If they just fixed the tooltip to be accurate, I've been happy. Because it's misleading. And of course your typical save for half damage is still there. But again, it can be intensified, so that 12d6 can get all the way up to 17 fucking d6 of damage. That shit's money. And I'll happily take that from level 4 to level 5 to intensify it. That's total worth. That is never not getting in my build. Elemental Body 1. This one I used to hate, and I still hate it, but I'm warming up to it thanks to the modders. I still maintain that you want the bigger version, the Elemental Body 2. That's the biggest one I'll go to. Elemental Body 1 can still have some fun with it, so there's reason still to want it. The reason I didn't like it back in the past, this is a vanilla version spell that got fixed. In the past, you couldn't cast spells in this form. And fuck you, I'm an elemental being that has a face, arms, sometimes legs, and the ability to fucking clearly talk, so why can't I cast spells and gesture? So the modders thought the same thing and said, fuck it, you can cast spells now in this form. And they fixed that shit, which I'm like, fuck yeah. But they're still not great forms, and here's why. The same general principle as turning into an animal. You lose your weapon, you lose your armor. Now, back to our earlier argument on Sword Saints. Remember I said that Sword Saints would really kind of hate these forms because, again, they need their little weapon in their hand to be the Sword Saint that they are, to get all the buffs for armor and the attacks and all the cool shit that they get for being a Sword Saint. It all comes from having that one weapon they specialize in. Well, you can specialize in unarmed strikes, like a monk, right? Like you're punching as a Sword Saint. And you may be like, oh, perfect. Then, Elemental Body would work because you're, again, a humanoid and you're punching to it, right? Well, yes and no. Yes, in that the Earth form, my favorite, it is a punch. I know this because you can check your armor and you can see that you still have your armor from being a Sword Saint. For the other three forms, the Water Elemental, the Fire, and the Air, they brawl. I think they actually call it slam. It's not a punch. It is a punch. They just like backhand your ass. But the point is, it's not considered an unarmed strike. Because for those three forms, it's not considered an unarmed strike, again, you'd lose all that awesomeness of being a Sword Saint. So Sword Saints would get fucked with this spell, unless you pick the Earth form. Okay? And again, you'd have to be a Sword Saint that, again, brawls with unarmed strikes. That's the only reason for a Sword Saint using this, in my opinion. Well, not the only reason. There's elemental protections. So if like you're running through fire, turn into a fire elemental. If you're got cold problems, you turn into a water. If you need protection from electric, an air elemental is solid. These forms suck, not just because of the penalties to weapon and armor, but also the fact that you're a teeny tiny being in Elemental Body 1. That's why I go for Elemental Body 2. You're normal human size. Being teeny tiny gives you extra armor, but you don't get much in the way of buff. The Fire Elemental and the Air Elemental get like a little bit of dex. The Water Elemental gets a little bit of con. The Earth Elemental gets a little bit of strength. I can at least appreciate strength. And the Earth Elemental has better armor than all three of the other guys. I don't know what that's about. Even the ones with extra dex pale in comparison to the Earth Elemental's extra armor, because they get natural armor for being a big rocky motherfucker. And let's just say, it looks fucking cool. It's like the Thing, but he's on like a little fucking rock wheel. It's funny as shit. You'll play with it, you'll have fun. But the fact that you can cast spells in this form now makes this a lot more viable. I still maintain that you'd probably want to wait till Elemental Body 2, or at least pick this one up, play with it, and spec out of it. But remember, if you're doing the specking out of it, we're talking Eldritch Science now, if you're specking out of it, this has to be your one and done level 4 spell that you're going to pick and say, I'll play with this and then I'll get rid of it later. Because if you pick something else and say, oh, I'll get rid of that later. No, you only get rid of one. Remember? One at each, well, not at each level. It's misleading. You can only get rid of 6 spells. So you have to be really still kind of choosy. But you can, because you can swap out 6 spells by the end of your build, you can play a little bit, which is cool. So know that that's a thing. So be choosy. Know in advance if you're like, I'll give it a go. Again, I still maintain that you'll probably have more fun with the Earth form. But remember, all 4 forms have like 20% resistance to the element of their obvious. Fire is against fire, water is against cold, air is against electric, Earth is against acid. So DR 20, or whatever the hell they call it, for acid resistance for an earth elemental form is pretty fucking good. I mean, you can almost stand in, like, matter of fact, you can stand in acid fog spell that you can even cast in this form, in that earth elemental form, and be completely fucking immune to it. And the bad guy's flesh is just melting off while he's brawling the shit out of your rock form. So you can play with it and have some serious fun, is my point. Fire Shield. Now this is the one you wanted compared to the other one that's coming later in this video called Shield of Dawn. Shield of Dawn, now that this is available, is piss. This one's solid. Why is this one solid? It's the same as Shield of Dawn, except you have two things different. One, you get to choose between fire damage and cold damage. Then, the other thing you get is you get protection from said damage as well. How does that protection work? Well, first, it's misleading. It says that there's a warm shield and a chill shield. You get to choose between the two. The chill shield does cold damage. The warm shield does fire damage. That part's true. It says they protect you from cold-based or fire-based attacks depending on which shield you pick. You would think that the warm shield protects you from cold, and the chill shield protects you from fire. No. The shield that does fire damage protects you from fire. The shield that protects you, or that does cold damage, protects you from cold. And how does that protection work? You take half damage. Period. It doesn't matter if it's 100 points or 5 points of fucking damage. They just chop it in half. And better than that, if there's a saving throw to limit the damage, if you make this saving throw, you take no fucking damage. That's why this one is now suddenly fucking awesome. It's still bad, because the duration's bad. But there's reason still to want this on your build. There's still reason to maybe slot it once and just have it just sitting there in your back pocket. You come across some fire dealing motherfuckers. Fire shield, bitch. At least I'm taking half damage. And that is before, by the way, damage reduction and all that other shit kicks in. It's just a halving of the damage, period. So if you have, damage reduction 10 against fire for whatever other reason, like maybe you got a piece of leather on that protects you from fire a little bit, and then you have this spell on, damage is cut in half, and then whatever would have come through gets reduced by 10 more thanks to your leather armor or whatever you have on. Just fucking badass. So this one's cool. It's just not my thing. I'm never a fan of spells where if you hit me, you take damage. I mean, I dig the idea. Again, if this was a swift action, I'd be more inclined to grab it because I'm like, oh fuck, and activate it. But using my entire turn to do that shit, I don't know, man. Just this part here, the protection from fire or protection from cold, is the real reason you'd want it, in my opinion. But it's kind of interesting, and you can intensify this one because again, it's 1 point of extra damage per caster level, maxes out at level 15, so it's plus 15 damage. So if you intensify it, you can get it up to plus 20, but I mean, really, who gives a shit? Why would you do that? Yeah, it's extra 5 damage, I guess, whatever. Forceful Strike. This one's weird. So this one, we need to explain some stuff. So as a Magus, you have the ability to channel melee touch attacks like this one through your weapon. This is not a melee touch attack. This is literally you doing exactly what a Magus does by default. What do I mean by that? So instead of you needing Spell Strike and Spell Combat, those are your two toggles that you leave on, you can shut those fuckers off and still cast this spell as a swift action and then swing your weapon and it will discharge the spell. So it behaves just like what a Magus would do, but you don't need these things now to do it. And that means you should shut those off. Why would you shut them off? I mean, you're a Magus. Well, one, if you shut these off, you can swing a weapon now 2 hands. 2, because you're swift actioning that shit, you're not missing out on your attack potential. 3, thanks to Spell Strike and Spell Combat being on, you add a penalty to your swing. Remember, it's a -2 to your swing. Anytime you cast a spell and swing your weapon in the same combat round, you're at a -2 with these 2 abilities on. So, shut them off, because you can still use this with these 2 off and get the full benefit out of this. And it hits like a brick shithouse. 10d4 of force fucking damage, no spell resistance. It crits when the weapon crits, all the shit that you fucking love about it. And it even has a bull rush effect where if you hit the motherfucker, you check to fucking knock their ass back. It's fucking awesome. Now, of course, there's a save for having the damage. And notice it's a fortitude save, not a reflex save, so that's important. And of course, it prevents the pushback if they make the save as well. But, so, still did damage, and I'm still happy about the fact that I can intensify that fucker, because it does 1d4 per level. That's 10d4 at level 10. If I intensify it, that gets it all the way up to 15d4. That's not amazing, but for what it does, hell yeah. And remember, force is not heavily resisted damage type in this game. It's something that it's going to hit, it's going to hurt. You having a hard time wailing on a guy, here you go, Forceful Strike. Definitely something to play with. And I should point out that that pushback ability is great for like doing things like pushing them back into like the web spell or the grease spell or the pits that you fucking summon on the ground. So again, pocket dungeon pool kind of shit here. Greater Aggressive Thundercloud. This is just the big brother version of Aggressive Thundercloud. It does more damage, twice as much no less, so 6d6 versus 3d6 of electric damage per smack. It does have another added feature where the first person that hits with it has a fortitude save. So there's a reflex save and a fortitude save now. The fortitude save is for the thundering smash effect, which is a sonic effect which can stun for 1 round. That's kind of cool. It still has that 20% concealment and all that other annoying bullshit, but by and large, it could be fun. And again, just like Aggressive Thundercloud, you can move it with your move action. If you stand stock still, you can go into your abilities tray and click the spell again, the icon I should say that looks like the spell again, and then move it to somewhere else within range. So if you're done frying this motherfucker, send it over to that motherfucker. Zap! And then you still get to swing with your weapon. So again, some definite fun that can be had here. Greater Invisibility. Like I said, between it and Displacement, if I had to hard choose, I'd pick this one every time. Yes, it comes later in the build, but it's so worth it. Plus 20 to your stealth, like all invisibility spells. It's basically invisibility. Remember, that's the thing. But remember, invisibility provides total concealment. That's the 50% chance to miss. Just like Displacement, you would say. Yes, but remember, this is invisibility. That one was not. So if someone can see invisible, this spell's now useless for you. You see the point. That's why the other one does have its merits. But that's why I say usually. Same with sets up sneak attack. Again, usually. Not always, but usually. You can still attack while this one is up, which is nice. Unlike the other invisibility spells, the moment you attack, those spells wear off. They can see you now. This one stays on you. And yes, because of that, and that's OP, they make it duration of 1 round per level. Which sucks, yo. But you know what? I'd still rather have this than not. It's an amazing spell. And again, you can extend it. You can double the duration. There's plenty of fun you can be had with here. And remember, you can cast it on other people, like your fucking frontliners. Let them tank for you being all invisible. Cast it on Octavia so she can get all that sneak attack loving. And whatever you want to do, this is available to you is the point. Definitely worth having. Ice Storm. Definitely worth not having. Yeah, alright, it's not true. It's okay. It's massive AoE. Let's just talk about some positives. Range is good. Massive AoE. Sets up difficult terrain. There's ways for you and your team to be immune to difficult terrain. Think about your fly spell. There is a persistent penalty to perception checks, which is bad. Good and bad. Let's talk about the good first. So if you had anyone on your team that was trying to stealth, remember, stealth is nothing more than an ability check. They're trying to perceive you based on their perception versus your stealth. Well, if their perception is debuffed, -4, then anyone that's trying to stealth has basically a better chance to stealth, right? But this also works 2 ways. So it also works against you. Well, if they're invisible, now your perception is debuffed because you're in the area of effect. And you see the problem. Also, your perception is used for other things besides finding stealthers, like finding traps. So if you're running through an area and you don't know if there's a trap, you're at a -4 to detecting that trap. It's probably not that big of a deal, but it's annoying. And man, does that shit suck when you fucking trigger a trap just because you couldn't see it. So, just saying, this is dangerous. The damage is also lame. 3d6 of bludgeoning, 2d6 of cold. It doesn't get any better than that. And for whatever reason, and I can't stress how stupid this is to me, big ass chunks of solid pieces of ice are slamming down from the sky and hitting people. But if they could have spell resistance, they could be immune to the damage. What? How the fuck does that happen? Makes no, like Stone Call, which is like the weaker version of this spell, has no spell resistance. And it's a conjuration. I understand that. This is an evocation. So what? It's still chunks of fucking ice flying from the sky. Well, he has spell resistance, so I guess the rock hit me in the fucking head or the ice chunk hit me in the head didn't actually hit me in the head? What? That makes no sense. So I disagree on this part. But it is there, so just be aware of that too. Oh, and I should point out that the damage is instantaneous. It's the first round that it hits. So be outside of the area of effect because it's not teammate friendly. The duration that you're seeing here, the round per level, has to do with the difficult terrain of the perception debuff. Mass enlarged person, mass reduced person. It's the mass version. You already know that these suck. All right, if you're going to pick these two, either of these two, it's the reduced person. Let's just say it. Enlarged person has its uses, but you're not going to do the AoE version for the team. That's just weird. And let's just say it. Lindsay, when she's a teeny tiny person, she's adorable. When she's a teeny or tinier person, she's even more adorable. When she's a big as a human person, but has a head the size of a fucking pumpkin, she looks fucking weird. Also, there's more penalties for being large than there is for being small. Yes, being small means a penalty to strength. That's it. That is the only penalty you got. You move just as fast as you normally did, so they don't make you move slower. But you have better dexterity. You have a better chance to hit. You have better armor. Because of your better dexterity, and because you're tiny, and it's hard to hit you, it's easier to hit them because they're big and you're tiny. And again, all this shit is awesome. The reverse is the point, though, for enlarge. There's reasons to be enlarged. Like a Miri. You got better reach with your weapon. She's stronger, so while she has a penalty to her swing, she also has a bonus to her swing, so they kind of counter each other out. But she'll do more damage. That's true. So again, there's reasons enlarged person is decent, but not the AoE version. You want mass reduced person if you're going to grab either of these, and you're probably not going to grab either of these. I mean, if you get it for your spellbook, scribe it to your spellbook and never fucking look at it again. I'm a completionist. I'm like you guys, but I'm probably never slotting these spells. Phantasmal Killer, on the other hand, is fucking tits. It's a 2 save spell, which is weird because it just says will. There's actually a will and a fortitude save. It should actually have that updated. Too bad. It's got a good range. It's a single target. It's an insta-kill spell, possibly. And how does that work? Well, they fail both saving throws. They fail the will save to not believe the illusion. So if they pass it, they're like, I don't believe you, and nothing happens. So it's a save or suck spell for that first save. Then if they fail that first save, it doesn't, well, it matters, but it doesn't matter as much. If they fail the fortitude save, they die. They have a heart attack. They go like, and fucking die. If they pass the fortitude save, but they fail the will save, so they fail the first save, they believe the illusion, they make the fortitude check, they still take damage, 3d6. And that's not amazing, but at least it hurt. At least it did something. I'd rather have spells that do something, even if they make a check. The downside, again, is they still have to fail that will save, so this is important. But again, it's an illusion. And look at all these different spell descriptors. Why do I mention that? Well, remember, spell focus and greater spell focus exists in this game. You can be really good at illusion spells. This is one of them. And there's gear in the game that affects mind-affecting spells, or fear spells, or negative emotion spells that can give you a better DC check. So you can take some of your illusion spells and really push them through the fucking goddamn roof with a DC check with a solid Magus build, especially an Eldritch Scion. I would go Arcane Bloodline. You can have some serious fucking fun being an illusionist doing an Arcane Bloodline. And this is one of those spells that makes it super fun. Now, yeah, there's multiple saves, so that straight up sucks. But again, if your DC check is through the roof, the chances that they will fail that will save is pretty good. And that's why you kind of like this spell. And again, the potential for just making them clutch their heart and fucking fall to the ground in a heap is just too good to pass up. It's a solid spell. You probably want it. Rigor Mortis, on the other hand, a new spell, transmutation spell. Love me, transmutation. Nice range. No spell resistance. Decent duration. Solid damage. The target takes 1d6 points of damage per caster level. Doesn't say anything about a cap. So that's 20d6 of fucking damage by the end of your build, baby. Auto hit, because it doesn't say anything about missing. -4 penalty to their dexterity and movement speed decreases by 10 feet for the duration. And keep reading. These additional effects last for 1 minute per caster level. A successful save, their fortitude save now, halves the damage, so 20d6 dropping down to 10d6 technically, and negates the penalty of dexterity and movement. And again, that penalty to dex can't be discounted. Remember, that's a penalty to their swing if they're a ranged attacker or if they're a weapon finesser. It's a penalty to their armor. It's a penalty to their reflexes, and they move fucking slow. So this is a solid fuck you spell, and definitely would make the cut. River of Wind. I suppose we had to get a bad spell in here somewhere. This one's okay. It's glitchy, in my opinion, so I would steer away from it. It says River of Wind. I think of this as Wind Wall, or Wall of Wind, however you want to think of it. It literally is what it looks like. So you literally click on the ground. You draw a straight line from you to where you clicked, and then perpendicular to that line is where the wall shows up. And it just looks like rocks flying out of the ground. It's a cool animation. It does damage, bludgeoning physical damage, and the chance to knock them down is definitely useful. However, the downside of this is, again, A, spell resistance. How the fuck does that make any sense? It's goddamn wind, but whatever. But B, they can take persistent damage if they're locked in place. I have had this where the glitchy part comes in, though. I have had it where they're clearly on top of the fucking cloud on the wall where the rocks are flying up in their face and they're taking no damage, and it's not because they're saving. They literally didn't even do a save check. So, like I said, the spell is glitchy. I would use this, if I were to use this, and again, it's not teammate friendly, I would use this where you lock them in like a web spell or a grease spell or a paralysis spell of some kind first, then have someone like you or someone else on the team cast River Wind right at their fucking feet so they get caught in it guaranteed. And if that's the case, then it should work and should work fine. But it is too glitchy for me to really recommend it as a spell. Shield of Dawn, we already talked about Fire Shield. Fire Shield's better, grab it instead. I should point out that the spell descriptor of good, that might matter. I can't think of any reason that matters to me, but some bad guys might be susceptible to spells of a good nature. So there's that, I suppose. Shout. This one usually makes my cut. And it's because of this right here, the no spell resistance. It's a nice cone, and the cone is not long, but 30 feet is pretty decent. It has a stun effect, potentially, if they fail their check, of course. Fortitude save for cutting the damage in half and no stun effect, so that sucks, but at least they took damage. And again, the damage may not be amazing, but it's damage you can rely on because of this no spell resistance part. There's new ways now to protect from stuff like this too, but again, it's a stun spell, it's a sonic spell, so again, if anything affects either of those, or if anything's immune to either of those, then that's a problem. But by and large, I find this to be a useful spell, especially with that stun component if I'm on a team, or if I'm on a solo run where I have pets out already, where I can stun the bad guys in mass, and then my pets run and chew the faces off all the stun targets, because it's only going to last for one fucking round. But I think you can actually extend this spell. So if they are stunned, one round becomes two, and that becomes more valuable to me then. Solid Fog, again, another cloud, quote-unquote, spell. So that concealment thing's still there, 20% melee concealment for anyone in the cloud, meleeing each other for long range into or out of the cloud. It's a 50% miss chance, and that straight up sucks. And notice this part, the vapors prevent effective ranged weapon attacks, except for magic rays and the like. So again, you don't even get to fucking shoot like bows and arrows and shit. Just fucking slap that down on the goddamn archers and have some fun. Makes them move slow and a penalty to their melee attacks and melee damage besides. So it's not even just the concealment chance to miss. There's actually a penalty to their swing and a penalty to their damage. And that's applicable to you, of course, as well. I would set this up, since it looks like magic rays, ray spells or ranged touch attacks still work effectively with this. I'd slap this down and let someone like Octavia, Raycaster, go with this fucking town and just pew, pew, pew through the fucking cloud and melt their faces off. That's how I would use this spell. And I could see this being definitely fun. And again, the duration is bigger than it needs to be, but whatever. Stones again. Amazing spell. Good duration, can be used on multiple targets, one at a time, of course. Pack your diamond dust. It absorbs a decent amount of damage. Total, we'll talk about that in a minute, but the DR is 10/adamantine. So again, for those of you that don't know what this means, physical damage is what we're protecting from. So that's either bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing. So all those damage types are lessened by 10 per hit. Now, that's nice, but if it's an adamantine weapon, it penetrates that. So then again, it's not nice. There's not very many adamantine weapons in the game. However, there's another component to this. I told you it absorbs a certain amount of damage. That's what we mean. It pops. So you want to talk about that. Think of this as a force field. It hits it, it absorbs the damage, some comes through. So again, lessens the damage. That's what you're hoping for. Eventually, when it exceeds the amount that it can absorb total, which means over time, it hits, absorbs 10, it absorbs 10, up to 15 times, best case scenario. And then it pops. It's no longer there. So that duration that's looking real pretty, that's not going to last. But this is nice, though, because you can preemptively cast it on yourself. Run through the fucking dungeon, you got many hours of protection. Having said that, keep an eye out for the icon, because when it pops, you'll never really notice. You'll just suddenly go from taking so-so damage to suddenly taking epic damage. You're like, what the fuck happened? Oh shit, my stone skin fell off. Recast it. That's what that's for. Another reason that I like this spell is because it can be layered with other DR spells. And what do we mean? Remember that DR 10/adamantine? If it's an adamantine weapon, it's useless, right? Yes, it is. However, there's other spells in the game, for example, that have DR 5 or DR10, let's just say, slash evil. Well, is it an evil weapon? Yes. Well, then it penetrates that one. Is it an adamantine weapon and evil? No. Well, then this one kicks in. That's what I mean by layers. It's not stacking. It's not 10 plus 10. No, it's like 10 and 10. One of them kicks in. That's all you need. So if it's an evil spell or physical weapon coming your way, then it's going to penetrate the one. But if it's not adamantine, then this guy will kick in. And vice versa. If it's an adamantine weapon, this one is useless, but the other one's there. And again, it's not an evil adamantine weapon, so you're protected. However, when you get that evil adamantine weapon comes your way, you're boned. But that's why you get another one that says DR10 or DR5 slash cold iron. That's where this gets funny. If you can find spells that protect you from different types of weapon compositions, adamantine, silver, cold iron are the examples I'm thinking of. There is no way to have an adamantine silver weapon or an adamantine cold iron weapon, because that's the whole point. Adamantine is what it's made of, or cold iron, or silver. So look for those combos, and then you're guaranteed to have at least some DR protection, and that's what I would do. But other than that, amazing spell, you definitely want it. Wall of Fire, this should be, I think, our last one. Notice again, there's 2. This is the one that came from Eldritch Arcana updated. This is the one that came from Call of the Wild. How do I know that? Look at the text. If they ramble on, they're like me. They talk too much. It's cool because they're giving you as much information as they can, which I appreciate. So again, I'm not digging on them more a little bit. But still, if it's big amount of text, chances are it's from Call of the Wild. If it's brief and succinct, it came from Eldritch Arcana. Okay? But basically, they're the same spell. They're not exactly the same. They're fucking close. So close that I think it doesn't matter which one you grab. And ignore this tooltip here. It is not that. It is a long range and it is a perpendicular line. So literally from you to where you click on the ground, make a perpendicular line. That's where a Wall of Fire shows up. The damage is the same. This has more text to it, and it says that you can obliterate parts of the wall with cold. That's bullshit. I tested it myself. Unless it's possible that the bad guys have to be the one that targeted it. That's a possibility, but that makes no sense to me. And this one says that if you're close to the wall but not running through it, you'll take fire damage. That's bullshit lie. It really behaves like this one. If you run through the wall, or if you're standing in the wall at the start of your turn, you take a shit ton of damage. 2d6 plus 1 per caster level, up to 20. So 22 to 32 is the range of damage you can expect per round. Notice if they're undead, they take double damage because, again, fire. Good spell. This is the ones, though, that you use more in a pen and paper setting where, like, oh, fuck, we walked through the wrong door, and it turns out it was the orcs' barracks or whatever, and there's like 40 fucking orcs bearing down on you. You and your ragtag team of shit-storming motherfuckers turn tail and run, and the wizard casts Wall of Fire to block your retreat. The game is stupid, and because of this, AI will run right through the fucking wall. They don't think about running around it. They just la-di-da. Excuse me. They just la-di-da their way right through the fucking thing, which is nice, but this one would be useful for me in this game when you already paralyze somebody, or already got them trapped in a web spell, or you're pinned in a corner and you have no choice. You cast it in front of you so it doesn't affect you, but anyone that's trying to melee you is to do so, they have to stand in a wall of fire to do it. And fuck those guys, quite frankly. They deserve it. So, yeah, it's all right spell. It's just probably not going to make the cut if I have to choose. Let's just say it. Well, with that, that's all we had for you today, guys. And now the next video will be the level 5 and 6 spells, and I'll get on that hopefully sometime this week. Might even do it today. But we'll see. I got other stuff that I got to get done today. It's the weekend. But with that, my name is Brother Mutant. Please like, subscribe, comment down below. Tell me what you think about these spells. How would you use them differently? Did I miss something? Did I say something wrong? It's going to happen. Post that down below, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye now.